everyone. We're back doing another session for International Women's Day, which I've turned into International Women's Month. The theme for National Women's Day this year is inspiring inclusion. And so what I'm doing is talking to women who inspire me and who I admire and who I know personally. And today that person is Melissa. So Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll dive in and have a chat.
Fantastic, Leah. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this amazing project. I'm Melissa Painter. I live in Seattle, Washington. I've been here for 30 years, but I grew up on the East Coast.
Okay.
So I'm definitely a transplant to the West Coast culture still.
After all this time.
That's right.
Awesome. So Melissa and I know each other because years ago when I lived in Seattle, I decided I wanted to have a tarot reading for the first time. And I found Melissa online and I read all these amazing reviews about her. And I went and met with her and she gave me this tarot reading that was just like, oh, I had no idea this could be like this. This is so great. It turned out that a few days later, I walked into a massage therapy place, a spa, and she was also my massage therapist. And I was like, well, that's a weird little kismet thing. That was super fun. And my best friend and I, every year at the beginning of the year, do a session with Melissa where we together have our tarot cards read for the year, and Melissa walks us through that. We did it in person a few times when I still lived in Seattle, and she would come spend some time with me at the holidays. And then now we do it online because I'm always somewhere else in the world. But Melissa's become a point in our calendar every year that we spend time with her, and we are regularly like, what's your card this month, and what did Melissa say about it? And so she comes up all the time. And then we're also connected on social media, so we keep track of each other there and have established a bit of a friendship as well. So, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to talk to Melissa because I'm super inspired by, obviously how she shows up in the world, the work she does, and owning her own business. And so I would love for you to tell everyone a little bit of your journey, like talk about what it's looked like to get from wherever to where you are today.
Yeah. I spent a long time last night trying to figure out how do we talk about this topic, because is it that I talk about when I decided that's it, I want to be my own business owner, but I don't think so, because I think that who we are is a lifelong journey,
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, the journey starts in the family that I was born to, which was so challenged,
Mm,
a blended family, and both of my parents gravely mentally ill.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
Working through my parents, they're all of their issues and how they manifested that in our family. It tore the family apart. It shaped each and every child. There's 7 of us all
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
I have a father who's sociopathic and a mother who is a narcissistic abuser. And my father's side of the family has a long history of pedophilia
Okay.
and incest.
Yeah.
So that sets the stage.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine living in an environment where your feelings aren't being heard, seen, recognized, or valued in an intensely abusive situation where
Mm.
you're moving almost every year
Wow.
until I was 13. So no stability, and constant violence on
Yeah.
every front.
Yeah.
So that, when they say that people who are raised on survival live different lives than people who are raised on love,
Yeah.
can confirm.
Same. Me too.
Definitely can confirm.
Yeah.
So, having my sense of self developed, or not developed in this case,
Mhm.
in that environment has been my lifelong journey. Is who am I? How do I cope with this trauma?
Yeah.
I'm even, at this stage, I'm 53 now. I'm still realizing that things were bad and wrong.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
cleaning the house and something will pop in and I'll be like, wait a minute,
That wasn't okay. Right.
on,
Yeah.
that was weird.
Yeah.
So but so it's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
Because I lived with all of that trauma and all of that deep desire to discover who I really am. And I wish I knew how, but somehow I came born into this world with a little spark inside of me that refused to go out.
Amazing. I love
I
that.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
I
where
love
that came from,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
And that little spark has always been my inner voice. You
Hmm.
know, I really believe that there are versions of me today. And I do this actually. I'll sit very clearly, sit in meditation and talk to my younger self
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
be the person that I needed at that time for her. Now
Yeah.
I have really clear memories of being a little person and having a voice inside my head that told me that the violence that was happening to me wasn't about me. That
Right.
there were some pretty advanced thoughts that I was having as
Yeah.
a little person.
Yeah.
So I really think that, you know, my older self, these versions of me are the thing that pulled me through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this discovery of who am I mean, I got kicked out somewhere around the age of 18
Mhm.
with at that time my mental health was really, really bad, you
Mhm.
know, and I had no money, no sense of who I was in the world, no idea where I was going. I often get an image of a snow globe, and that's how I felt. I
Okay.
felt all shooken up in a snow globe, and we just couldn't see what the picture was,
Right.
you know? And so I hitchhiked around the country for a while. I've had all kinds of really amazing adventures of being in flow with the
Yeah.
universe.
Oh, so cool.
My thankfully, I often think that it was my high school friends that raised me, or my post high school
Sure.
friends that raised me.
Sure.
I lived in a really small mountain town, and we had a university there. And so when I was in high school, I would hang out with the college kids
Hmm.
and crash at their house at night because it was too much of a bummer to go home. And
Right.
I developed these friendships. So when they all graduated college, I was graduating high school. They moved down to Chapel Hill and got a crash house. And boy, howdy, I got in the car
Yeah.
and see ya, bye, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
so it was this amazing group of hippies and witches that I kind of
I love
fell in with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all service workers, all of my friends have always been the kind of people who care about the environment, care
Yeah.
about their minds, care about their health
Hmm.
in really natural ways.
It's so great.
And yeah, and I'm really, really lucky. Biggest blessing to
Yeah.
have those, to have that memory of being in that house with those people.
Right.
So, so I lived with them until I was 21.
Mhm.
And then through a series of events, I'd broken up with a boyfriend, had to get out of town, jumped on a train, went up to New York, and ended up working at the Omega Institute for a
Oh,
summer.
wow. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool, right? And so I hung out at Omega, and then Omega ends in the winter time,
Mhm.
and didn't have a plan or a hope or a prayer. So I hitchhiked halfway across country, ended up in Boulder, Colorado,
Oh, I love Boulder's one of my
because
favorite cities, so I love
yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. Very expensive though, as a
Yeah.
little
Yeah. Yeah.
ruffian punk
Still.
rocker. Yeah. And didn't know what I was going to do. Ended up hanging out there for as long as I could. Hitchhiked back to North Carolina. My friends had now moved up to Asheville, and we
Hmm.
got another crash house together. And I was in Asheville for a year, and I thought, you know, by now I'm 24, and I just thought I have to do something with my life.
Yeah.
I have to become something. I have to be someone. But yet my mental health this entire time, and I want you to know that my mental health, not being disassociated, being suicidal, dipped into schizophrenia a few times in my life, just wildly dysregulated
Yeah.
because I grew up in a
Yeah.
dysregulated
Totally.
environment,
Yeah.
right? So that has been true for me. I want to tell you that probably got a little better around 48, 49 years old,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
53, right? So the, so
The journey can be long, and I think
the
that's
journey
important for
can
people to
be
hear.
long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, got to do something with myself. Well, I had met this charming young man, and we had been together for 8 weeks. And I said, well, you know, thanks so much. You're really great, but I'm moving to Olympia, Washington to go to college. So I got into Evergreen, and he said, I've got a truck and I've always wanted to live on the West Coast. So another blessing that this charming young man that I had just met, 8 weeks prior, packed up his truck with all of my things, and we moved to Washington together and stayed together, by the way, for 10 years.
Wow. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, what are the chances, right? It's like, that's how life works. It's
I
so,
know. It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So I went to college. Well, I actually had chosen Evergreen because when I was living in North Carolina, I was apprenticing with a folk artist, this woman named Emily Bracken,
Mhm.
and she was so inspiring to me. And she had told me I went to school at
Oh,
Evergreen.
cool.
And I
Yeah.
was like, that's it. I got to do it too, because
Yeah.
Emily is just so amazing. So we moved out here, and I went to Evergreen, graduated in 4 years. I worked 40 hours at night managing a restaurant and did school 40 hours a week during the
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
right? Like 80 hours a week, 4 years, busted out. But my degree is actually in family psychology with a focus
Okay.
on art as therapy.
Okay.
And, I think that it's kind of true for people who struggle with mental health issues that we want to know why. And
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met a counselor who doesn't have some sort of crazy backstory. And it was their
Right.
desire to figure out what was
Trust
going
them. I
on with
think, yeah,
them.
you shouldn't trust a therapist who doesn't have some kind of background, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's street cred. So, so, I got this amazing degree and jumped out into the world ready to be a counselor. And lo and behold, entry-level jobs as a therapist are real stinker jobs,
Yeah.
really brutal,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I uh, I was working at this place called one of the youth uh,
Mhm.
housing places here. And the facility itself was the halfway between kids being in juvenile detention
Okay.
and them being in intense psychiatric care.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was a lockdown facility,
Yeah.
kind of like jail,
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
the kids would go off the rails, we could put them in the quiet room,
Mhm.
padded cell. And, you know, I hung in there as long as I could, but
Right.
every day is like the WWE. And I just like getting punches and having kids yelling at you and biting you and having to take people to the floor. No, not
Right.
what I wanted to do. I wanted to do art therapy with the kids, right?
Right. Right.
So that job ended. I took that as far as I could. I got a few other social work jobs
Mhm.
in Seattle, but again, entry level work,
Yeah.
extraordinarily low pay, and the clients that you're working with are really, it's a tough population.
Sure.
So, so here's and the part of the story that I haven't said. When we first moved up to Washington, to Seattle after I graduated in Olympia, got hired at a little internet startup called Amazon.com. And that was 1998. I was there
Mhm.
from 98 to 2001, and got the job on Craigslist. Within a month, was hired into management and ended up going to Japan and opening the Japan warehouse.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the training that I got in Six Sigma, in managing a crew, I was responsible for a crew of 200 people,
Yeah.
and here I am, 28, 29 years old,
Yeah.
and I went to school for social work.
Right. Right. But you
Right.
put things
Right.
together, right? Like we put together
Yeah.
pieces and that ends up being the
Yeah.
path. Yeah.
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 It's just this interesting. Anyway, I was able to use my people skills. My team loved me. I was able, now I'm ashamed of myself, but I would be able to get people to do 16-hour days instead of 14-hour days.
Yeah.
I have
Totally.
now at an older age, I have my own opinions about Amazon and modern day
Oh,
slavery.
totally.
So,
I feel you.
you
I
know,
work there. I work there too. So
yeah,
totally. Yeah.
totally.
So can
So,
I,
so after
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
so after Amazon ended, we all got laid off in 2001
Okay.
because the call center wanted to unionize, and the warehouse that I was in was the last manual warehouse. And
Okay.
so it was just at that turning point when Amazon was going all automated.
Yeah.
So they laid us all off, and I didn't have a job. I ended up working at this youth facility. Now,
Mhm.
during this time, if you can imagine 80 hours for my college work experience,
Yeah.
then I immediately pop into Amazon, which we know is 6 days a week,
Yeah.
12 to 16 hours a
Yeah.
day, no excuses.
Mhm.
The pressure cooker that I had created for myself in
Mm.
those two situations didn't allow was a continuation of my mental health growing up
Sure.
as a kid.
Sure.
I was in these intense situations, no excuses, doesn't matter how tired or mentally drained you are,
Right.
just pushed to the absolute limit. Well, here's the other interesting part. When we layer these things together, is that the relationship I had with this charming young man was the first time in my life that I had ever been seen, valued,
Mhm. Mhm.
evidenced as a person, held
Mhm.
safe. So over the course of our 10-year relationship, the more and more safe I became with him, the more and more trauma rose to
Sure.
the surface.
Yeah.
And in my family, to this day, no one has ever acknowledged that I was sexually assaulted,
Mm.
that no one has ever acknowledged a single thing was wrong.
Yeah.
Because I have a narcissistic abuser for a mom,
Sure.
everything's fine.
Right. Right.
Everything's
You
fine, and
can tell
she's
the
beautiful
story.
and perfect,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know. So the cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
that happened between surfacing what really happened
Mhm. Mhm.
and not even being in my own mind able to see it,
Yeah.
it makes me think of um, the phenomena called the invisible ships
Mm.
phenomena,
Mhm.
which they say that when Columbus discovered the New World, that the natives never even saw the ships as they came in because they had never seen such a thing. So it was invisible
Mm.
to the eye.
Sure. Yeah.
And so for me, I think a lot of evidencing trauma feels the same.
Sure. Yeah.
And more importantly, evidencing who I truly am as a real person on earth.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Because I've never seen it before. I didn't know that that existed.
Right.
There's
Right.
still times where a couple of years ago, I got a security camera and I didn't know I was allowed to do that because I didn't know I was allowed to keep myself safe.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
it felt like a major accomplishment for me
Yeah. Totally.
to suddenly have that realization.
Totally. So how would you say that really being seen and valued and really coming to that yourself has then influenced you saying, I want to go into something like tarot or massage therapy or more of sort of a healing work?
Yeah, because I think everybody needs this.
Yeah.
I think that for me, being able to evidence this trauma
Mhm.
and then turn it into something that helps others, because it is by my nature that I love and care about
Sure.
people.
Yeah, of
And
course.
now this big ball of awful that I've been
Yeah.
handed as a backstory, I find value in it. It
Yeah.
becomes important. It becomes something because I know for a fact I'm not the only woman that grew up in an environment like
Of
that.
course. Of
I
course.
know that, the thing that followed Amazon was 8 years of being sex trafficked and
Mhm.
was gang rape and ended up breaking up with Mark
Yeah.
and lost everything
Yeah.
and spent 8 years being um, harassed and bullied by the men that had assaulted me because they wanted me to live in fear, constant
Yeah.
fear,
Of course.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
to not report them. And in Washington, we no longer have this rule, but back then we had a rule that if you didn't report the assault within 8 years, then too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
They've since repealed that. That's not
Yeah.
true anymore.
Yeah.
But
That's great.
these guys really did make it their mission for those 8 years
Yeah.
to be sure that. And so having lived through that,
Mhm.
knowing what domestic violence is, knowing what and how all of this trauma lives in your body,
Yeah.
you know, like that's important knowledge to have. I often get kind of tickled because, I had in a dream world, I would have pursued a master's and a doctorate, and
Mhm.
I'd be doing some really big work
Yeah.
in the world
Sure.
right now,
Sure.
you know.
Mhm.
But however, my mental health and my finances were definitely not together to do those things.
Yeah.
It would have been impossible for
Sure.
me to do those.
Mhm.
But I went to the school of life And because I am so inquisitive and because I am so self-reflective and because I never stop reading, learning, and growing,
Right.
it doesn't mean that I stopped being interested in psychology.
Sure,
It
of
just
course.
means that I didn't get to participate in capitalism and buy a degree.
Right.
I
Right.
still, right, like, but I
Yeah.
still have the degree.
No, of course. Of
It's
course.
just, you know,
And it shows up. I
so
mean, obviously it shows up in how you serve others and the way that,
yeah,
the intuition that comes in doing,
yeah,
doing tarot and,
yeah,
the way that you can
exactly.
feel through someone's body what they may be experiencing and try to help them, work through it. So,
Exactly.
uh,
And so that is why I say I am a trauma informed tarot reader.
yeah.
This backstory that I had
Mhm.
makes it intuitive for me. I know what I'm seeing when I see people
Yeah.
come to me. I know what I'm seeing on the massage table, the way people are holding their bodies.
Yeah.
I know what I'm seeing in their communication style when they're telling me what's going on with them.
Right.
And so I'm always constantly throwing out little questions to
Yeah.
test the water with my clients
Yeah.
because I know from my own experience that we don't necessarily want to come to a stranger and start saying all of these deeply personal
Right.
things that have happened to us, but there are always clues.
Yeah. 100%.
Our
Totally.
our fascia holds our body in certain positions
Right.
when we're protecting our heart. Our hips will hurt if we're dealing with certain issues.
Yeah.
The energy that's lighting up in your body will
Mhm.
tell you exactly what is going on
Yeah.
because our body keeps score,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Absolutely does.
But I mean,
Absolutely
I find
does.
that even as a coach, often when I'm coaching someone and I'll say like, okay, you had just had a reaction. Where are you holding that in? Where do you feel
Yeah.
it in your body? If you close your eyes and tell me where you feel it in your body, sometimes they're really immediately sort of like uncomfortable that I'm asking, right? But if I can get them to trust me enough to say, yeah, actually I feel that in my chest, or I feel that in my stomach, or I feel it in my
Mhm.
shoulders, I feel it in my throat, and then we can kind of say, okay, well, what is it saying? What is it trying? What does it want to, what does it want you to know? Right. And often that is the key to unlocking whatever they need coaching on, because
Yeah,
it's something that is wanting to tell them there's a message, right? And our bodies will
exactly.
deliver the message if we'll listen, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
it comes through someone else like you bringing that forward. So super helpful.
It's kind of one of the as a trauma informed tarot reader, it's one of the interesting things. One of the most interesting things about tarot to me is the reason that it works is that when you're consulting an oracle, what you are saying is that there's information out there that I
Mm,
want to have, but I have no way to access that
right,
information. And so
right.
you come to somebody who presumably you trust or you've read good reviews, whatever,
Mhm.
and you sit down and you shuffle all of your little, spiritual
Yeah,
flashcards and this story gets laid out on the table. But what you're doing as you're receiving the story is you're lowering your resistance.
yeah,
For just a moment, your defense systems go down and you put yourself into a state of surrender.
yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting because it's that constant state of adulting that
Mm,
keeps us stuck.
yeah,
I have to figure this out. I already know. It's that, we become so rigid in protecting our adult selves, which
right,
is just a really hard wrapper for our very wounded inner child,
right, right.
So when we can let down that adult self, I'm able to talk to inner children
Yeah, I
with
love
the
that.
tarot,
I love it.
right?
And I've had that experience with you. I mean, I think that's because
Yeah.
people that know me know I have a trauma background as well.
Mhm.
But there's been moments, certainly with me and Jaleesa, like where you've said something, we've both been like, yeah, that's accurate, right? Because there's some part that wants out in the story that's coming up in that
Yes.
year or in that
Yes.
reading. So totally. Um,
Yeah.
just because I don't want us to run out of time, I want to give you a chance to tell us about your business, what you're doing, where
Sure.
is it, what do you do? Tell us.
Yeah. So I am the proud owner of Soma Massage and Tarot.
Mhm.
I'm in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, Washington, in
Yay.
Old Town Ballard. I've
Mhm.
got cute little spot upstairs in the historic bay window building.
Oh, cool.
What I'm doing is a really magical blend of tarot reading and massage services.
I love it.
I spent the first 7, 8 years of my massage career working in relatively high-end luxury boutique spas.
Mhm.
Combined that also with doing part-time work as a personal trainer.
Mhm.
And, bodybuilding was a big part of my life for a long time in my life, coming back into my body. So I've managed to create massage services that are both therapeutic and luxury experiences designed entirely to what my customers wants and needs. And if you want to add on a tarot reading, you can. If you want to come just for tarot, you can.
Nice.
Just for massage or a scrub or a wrap, it's versatile. And this year I've introduced doing sound baths
Oh,
as
I love
well.
that.
So, yep.
I love a
So
sound.
now sound baths are so fun. So I'm hosting a sound bath every month at a local fine arts group here.
Oh,
And
awesome.
then people can also hire me. I'm actually doing a party next week where I'm doing a sound bath for a group, an hour sound bath, and then individual tarot
Oh,
readings
I
for
love
everyone at
that.
their home.
Yeah,
I
it's
know,
like
really fun.
it's
So
so
really
fun. It's
excited
so
about that.
much fun. I'm
Yeah,
the I'm
really
the
excited.
I'm the person who comes to a sound bath and is so twitchy. My body's like, "Meh, meh, meh." I'm that person who looks totally unrested because my body is so reactive. And so, but I
Better than being
wake
the
up
person
like,
who's snoring.
yeah, exactly. I wake up like this was amazing, even though I was like so twitchy the whole time.
Totally.
Love it. So one last question. If you were going to give your younger self a piece of advice that you think might resonate with those who are watching or listening today, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah, I thought about this one last night. I mean, beyond all of the basics, believe in yourself, don't give up. You're
Yeah.
going to run into lots of disappointments and you have to just stay true. I wish that I had started investing at a younger age.
Yeah, sure.
That is my big piece of advice, only because I'm 53 with no savings.
Sure.
And that is that's constantly the message in the back of my mind is like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to work forever.
Right. Right. No, I think
Yeah.
that's great. I think that's great advice. And I think that those of us who have started businesses, if you want the freedom of having your own business, and you have to realize,
Yes.
I think two things. It's a lot of work.
Uh,
And you have to, if you can, having the means to do it can make it less
yeah.
scary, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Absolutely.
so I think that's great advice that for people who are paying attention, like a lot of what you just shared, super important to get the help you need, have the groups you need, have the resources you need,
Uh,
but also save some money, put some money away, invest
yeah.
it, and plan your financial health as well as your mental and spiritual, and physical.
Yeah, it really changes your perspective on life when being in a situation where you're constantly fearful
Yeah.
is much different than being in a situation where no, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, totally. Totally. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Melissa, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
We will make sure to put your place on blast because if I were in Seattle, I'd be there at least once a month, if not more often,
Thank
for my
you.
massage. It's just that I happen to be in London. But I would be happy to make sure that everyone knows about it because I'm so excited about you and what you're doing in the space and being able to really do that on your own. So thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and for everybody who's paying attention, there's going to be a QR code in the corner where you can donate to the Malala Fund if you're interested. The Malala Fund obviously helps to educate women and girls. A lot of women and girls in cultures where they may not have formerly been able to get education, but also educating women and girls in STEM and other areas that they may want to grow and learn in order to have opportunities. So if you would like to donate, grab the QR code and give some money to that lovely charity. So Melissa, thank you. And we will talk soon, you and me.
Love it. All right. Bye, Lee.